My son handed me a glass of water at his Thanksgiving dinner table, smiling that perfect smile he learned from his mother. The same smile she used when she asked for the divorce 20 years ago. I looked at the pill he placed beside the glass, my usual heart medication, and I realized with absolute certainty that it was not my medication at all. The color was slightly off. The shape was wrong. My son was trying to kill me, right there in his Seattle mansion, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and the smell of roasted turkey. I did not confront him. I did not throw the pill in his face. Instead, I palmed it into my napkin, pretended to swallow, and sent a coded text message to the one person who knew everything. My name is Thomas Walker. I am 67 years old, and for the past 40 years, I have let everyone believe I am just a retired auto mechanic living on Social Security in a small apartment in Tacoma. I drive a 2009 Ford F-150 with rust spots on the fenders. I wear jeans from Walmart and steel-toed boots that have seen better days. I eat at diners where the coffee is $2 and the waitresses call me hun. What nobody knows, not my ex-wife, not my son, not a single soul except my lawyer and my accountant, is that those decades of changing oil and rebuilding transmissions were just a hobby. The real money came from buying rundown apartment buildings in the 80s when Seattle was still affordable. I purchased them with cash from an inheritance nobody knew I received. Today, I own Walker Property Holdings, a real estate investment company with assets exceeding $180 million. 37 buildings, 2,000 rental units, all managed through a series of trusts and LLCs that trace back to a P.O. box in Delaware. I kept it quiet because I wanted my son Daniel to become his own man. I thought if he knew about the money, he would never learn the value of hard work. I thought I was teaching him character. Instead, I taught him nothing. He became exactly like his mother. Before I tell you how I watched my son's entire world crumble around him, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever been dismissed, ignored, or underestimated by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you are going to want to see every second of what comes next. The nightmare began 6 hours earlier, when I pulled my old truck into the circular driveway of my son's $4.2 million waterfront estate in Medina. The house was ridiculous, a glass and steel monument to excess that overlooked Lake Washington. My son had told everyone he made his fortune in tech consulting. The truth was far less impressive. He had married Victoria Chen 3 years ago, the daughter of a wealthy importer, and they had been burning through her family's money ever since. I knew this because I had hired a private investigator 18 months ago when Daniel stopped returning my calls. The report was devastating. They were $890,000 in debt. The house had a second mortgage. The cars were leased. The jewelry Victoria wore to charity galas was rented. They were one bad month away from total collapse. I parked my truck between a Mercedes and a Tesla, both of which would probably be repossessed by spring. The November air was cold and damp, typical Pacific Northwest weather that seeped into your bones. I grabbed the bottle of wine I had brought, a $12 Merlot from Safeway, and walked toward the front door. Victoria answered before I could knock. She was wearing a cream-colored designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her smile was the kind you practice in front of a mirror. "Thomas," she said, and the way she pronounced my name made it sound like something unpleasant she had stepped in. "You actually came. Would not miss Thanksgiving with my boy," I said, stepping inside. The foyer was all marble and modern art, the kind of stuff that looks expensive but says nothing. "Where is Daniel?" "In his office, taking a call." She looked at the wine bottle in my hand and her lip curled slightly. "How thoughtful. I will put this in the kitchen." She took the bottle between 2 fingers like it might be contaminated and disappeared down a hallway. I stood there in my worn Carhartt jacket, feeling every inch the poor relation they believed me to be. The dining room was visible through an archway, a long table set with china and crystal, for what I assumed would be an intimate family gathering. I was wrong. I heard voices coming from the living room and followed them. What I found made my stomach drop. There were at least 20 people milling around, all of them dressed in clothes that cost more than my truck. They held champagne flutes and laughed at jokes I could not hear. In the corner, I spotted Victoria's parents, Robert and Linda Chen, holding court like royalty. They looked at me the way you might look at a stray dog that wandered in from the street. "Dad," Daniel's voice came from behind me. I turned and saw my son for the first time in 8 months. He was 42 years old, tall like me, but soft in a way I never was. His handshake was weak. His eyes never quite met mine. "Glad you could make it. You said it was going to be family dinner," I said quietly. "This looks like a party." "It is family," he said, gesturing vaguely at the crowd. "Victoria's family. They are here for Thanksgiving too." He lowered his voice. "Look, Dad, I know this is not what you expected, but try not to embarrass me tonight, okay? These people are important. The Chens have connections that could really help my business." "What business is that, Danny?" I asked. "Last time we talked, you were between opportunities." His jaw tightened. "It is Daniel, and I have several ventures in development. You would not understand. It is tech stuff. I might understand more than you think, Dad." He put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed, not affectionately. "Just stay in your lane tonight. Drink your beer, eat your turkey, and try not to talk about carburetors or whatever. Can you do that for me?" I looked at my son, really looked at him, and I saw nothing of myself. No trace of the boy who used to hand me wrenches in the garage on Saturday mornings. No echo of the teenager who cried at his grandmother's funeral. That boy was gone. This man was a stranger wearing his face. "Sure, Danny," I said. "I will stay in my lane." Dinner was a masterclass in humiliation. I was seated at the far end of the table, as far from the Chens as physically possible without putting me in another room. To my left was Victoria's cousin, a day trader named Marcus, who spent the entire meal on his phone. To my right was an empty chair that remained empty all night. The food was catered, which meant it was beautiful and tasteless. Turkey that had been carved by professionals. Stuffing that came from a fancy restaurant downtown. Not a single dish made by hand with love. I thought about the Thanksgivings when Daniel was young, when his mother and I would spend all day in the kitchen together. She would make her cornbread stuffing. I would deep fry the turkey in the backyard. Daniel would sneak pieces of pie before dinner. Those days felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Halfway through the meal, Robert Chen decided to acknowledge my existence. "So, Thomas," he called from the head of the table, his voice carrying over the other conversations. "Daniel tells us you were a mechanic." "Auto repair," I said. 40 years. Fascinating." The word dripped with condescension. "And what is it you do now? In retirement?" "I keep busy. A little of this, a little of that." "He lives in a studio apartment in Tacoma," Victoria added helpfully. "Near the port, very rustic." The table laughed politely. I felt my face flush, but kept my expression neutral. "It suits me," I said. "I do not need much." "Clearly," Robert said, glancing at my flannel shirt. "Well, I suppose there is something admirable about knowing your station in life. Not everyone is meant for success. Someone has to fix the cars, after all." More laughter. I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to say something. Waiting for him to defend me, even a little. He was staring at his plate, cutting his turkey into smaller and smaller pieces, pretending he had not heard anything. That was when I felt the first wave of dizziness. It came on suddenly, a spinning sensation that made me grip the edge of the table. My vision blurred. My heart started racing, pounding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I had taken my medication that morning, the same dosage I had been on for 5 years. This should not be happening. "Excuse me," I managed to say, pushing back from the table. "I need some air." "Are you all right, Dad?" Daniel asked. But he did not get up. He did not move toward me. He just watched with an expression I could not read. "Fine," I said. "Just need a minute." I stumbled out of the dining room and down a hallway, looking for a bathroom. The house was a maze of identical white walls and abstract paintings. I pushed open a door and found myself in what looked like a study. I leaned against the desk, trying to catch my breath. That was when I heard the voices. They came from somewhere nearby, muffled but distinct. I followed the sound to a door that was slightly ajar, a door that led to what appeared to be a home office. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. "He looks terrible," It was Victoria's voice, excited and barely contained. Did you see how he almost fell out of his chair? It is working faster than I thought. Keep your voice down. Daniel, my son, the Chens are right down the hall. They are too busy being impressed with themselves to notice anything. How long do you think it will take? The guy I bought it from said the digoxin would cause heart failure within 12 to 24 hours. Combined with his existing condition, it will look completely natural. Just an old man whose heart finally gave out. I felt ice spread through my veins. Digoxin. They had given me digoxin, a heart medication that in the wrong dosage becomes a deadly poison. It was sitting in my body right now, working its way toward my heart. And you are sure about the will? Victoria asked. I looked it up online. If he dies without a spouse, everything goes to the next of kin. That is you. That apartment, whatever pathetic savings he has, maybe we can even sue the nursing home he would have ended up in. The apartment is nothing, Daniel said, but his pension, Social Security survivors' benefits. It all adds up. And there is that property in Tacoma. It is a dump, but the land has to be worth something. A developer might pay decent money for it. How much are we talking? Maybe $200,000 if we are lucky, enough to pay down some of the credit cards. Buy us another year before the Chens figure out we are broke. Your father dies, and we get $200,000, Victoria said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Best Thanksgiving ever. Just make sure he takes the other dose tonight, the one we put in his pill case. I switched out his real medication yesterday when he went to the bathroom at that diner. He thinks he has been taking his normal pills all week. I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. My son had been planning this for at least a week. He had followed me. He had gone through my belongings. He had replaced my heart medication with poison, and all for $200,000 that I could have given him at any moment if he had just asked. The dizziness was getting worse. Whatever they had given me was working. I needed to act fast. I pulled out my phone, the old flip phone that everyone mocked me for using, and opened the text messaging app. I sent 2 messages. The first was to Martin Cole, my lawyer and the only person who knew my true identity. Code red, I typed. Digoxin, poisoning, confirmed. Suspects are my son and daughter-in-law. Location is 4,847 Hunts, Point Road, Medina. Send medical team and police. Silent approach. The second message was to someone named Angela Reyes, Director of Security for Walker Property Holdings. Protocol Zephyr, I typed. They crossed the line. Full forensic extraction. Bring everything to Overlake Medical Center. I am going dark. I deleted the messages from my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Then I took a deep breath and prepared to give the performance of my life. I staggered back toward the dining room, making sure my footsteps were loud and unsteady. I grabbed onto a decorative table in the hallway and knocked over a vase, sending it crashing to the floor. Mr. Walker, one of the catering staff, came running. Are you okay? My chest, I gasped, clutching my flannel shirt. I cannot breathe. I let my legs buckle. I collapsed against the wall and slid down to the floor, making sure to position myself where I would be visible from the dining room. The commotion brought everyone running. I lay on the cold marble floor, my eyes half closed, watching through my lashes as Daniel and Victoria pushed through the crowd. Dad! Daniel shouted, dropping to his knees beside me. Dad, can you hear me? His voice was perfect, panicked, concerned. Everything a loving son should sound like. I would have believed it if I had not heard him planning my murder 5 minutes earlier. Someone call 911, Victoria screamed. I think he is having a heart attack. Give him space, Robert Chen commanded. Everyone back up. Does anyone know CPR? I let my body go limp. I made my breathing shallow and ragged. I let drool slip from the corner of my mouth. When Daniel grabbed my hand, I made sure my grip was weak, my fingers cold and clammy. Stay with me, Dad, Daniel said. Help is coming. Just hold on. I heard Victoria on the phone with emergency services, her voice trembling with manufactured grief. I heard the Chens murmuring about liability and whether this would affect their daughter's social standing. I heard Marcus the day trader complaining that he had just missed a market notification. Nobody was checking my pulse correctly. Nobody was administering real first aid. They were all just standing there, watching an old man die on the floor, and the only thought in most of their heads was how this would inconvenience them. The paramedics arrived in 11 minutes. They were not regular paramedics. Martin had connections with a private medical firm that Walker Property Holdings used for executive emergencies. They knew exactly what to do. "Sir, can you hear me?" A woman's voice, calm and professional. I felt her checking my vitals with hands that knew what they were doing. "Pulse is weak but present. We need to transport immediately." They loaded me onto a stretcher. As they wheeled me toward the door, I caught one last glimpse of Daniel and Victoria. They were holding each other, both of them crying. It was a beautiful performance. I closed my eyes and let them take me away. The ride to Overlake Medical Center was a blur of sirens and medical jargon. The lead paramedic, a woman named Dr. Sarah Winters, leaned close to my ear as soon as we were in the ambulance. "Mr. Walker, you are safe now. We administered the antidote to the digoxin 15 minutes ago. You are going to experience some discomfort, but the worst is over." I opened my eyes. "How did you know to bring the antidote?" "Angela called us the moment she got your message. She had a profile on your son's recent activities. We suspected this might be pharmacological. The team has been on standby for 3 weeks." 3 weeks. Angela had been watching my son for 3 weeks and never told me. I would have to thank her for that later. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we put you in a private room, hook you up to monitors that show exactly what we want them to show, and we wait. Martin is already at the hospital with the police detective. They want to give your son enough rope to hang himself." I nodded slowly. "Then let us give him plenty of rope." The hospital room was small and sterile, filled with machines that beeped and hummed in rhythm with my supposedly failing heart. I lay in the narrow bed with my eyes closed, my breathing shallow and controlled. The wires attached to my chest were real, but the readings on the monitor were being manipulated by a technician in another room. To anyone watching, I was a dying man. The door opened at 11:47 p.m. I knew it was Daniel and Victoria before they spoke. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral that probably cost $300 an ounce. "He looks worse than before," Victoria whispered. "That is good. It means it is working." I heard them moving around the room, opening drawers, checking cabinets. "Where do they keep his personal belongings?" Daniel asked. "Try that closet. His wallet should have his ID and bank cards." I listened to them rifle through my jacket, the same jacket I had worn for 15 years. I knew what they would find. A driver's license with my Tacoma address. A debit card for an account with a balance of $3,847. A AAA membership card. A photo of Daniel as a baby. "That is it?" Victoria's voice was sharp with disappointment. $3,000? "He is on a fixed income, Vicky. I told you, the money is in the property. This is insane. We poisoned your father for a studio apartment?" "It is not just the apartment. There is the land value, the life insurance, the Social Security death benefit. It adds up. It better add up fast, Daniel, because the Chens are asking questions about our finances. My father wants to see our investment statements next week. If he finds out we are broke, he will not find out. Once my father dies, we will have cash to cover the gaps. We just need to speed this up." I felt the mattress shift as someone sat on the edge of the bed. Fingers touched my hand, cold and impersonal. "How do we speed it up?" Victoria asked. "The doctors already think it is just a matter of time. What if we help things along?" "What are you suggesting?" "The machines. What if something got unplugged? What if his oxygen tube got kinked? Things happen in hospitals all the time. Equipment malfunctions. No one would question it." I felt Daniel's presence lean over me. His breath was on my face, hot and sour with wine. "Are you sure?" he whispered. "Once we do this, there is no going back." "There is no going back anyway," Victoria said. "We already committed to this plan. We just need to finish it." I heard Daniel stand up. I heard him move around the bed toward the monitors. I heard his hand touch the power cord. And then I heard something else. The click of a door, the sound of footsteps, and the voice of Detective Maria Santos of the Bellevue Police Department. Daniel Walker and Victoria Chen Walker, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Thomas Walker. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I opened my eyes. Daniel was standing frozen by the monitors, his hand still on the power cord. His face was a mask of shock, all the color drained from his cheeks. Victoria was by the door, held firmly by two uniformed officers. She was screaming something about lawyers and her father, but nobody was listening. "Dad?" Daniel's voice cracked. "Dad, this is not what it looks like. We were worried about you. And I heard everything, Danny." I sat up slowly, removing the oxygen tube from my nose. "Not just now. In your office, too. When you were talking about the digoxin. When you were calculating how much my death would be worth. That was just... We were joking. It was a hypothetical. The pills you switched out last week were recovered from your home 2 hours ago," Detective Santos said. "They are currently being tested at a forensic lab. We also have your internet search history showing purchases of digoxin from an offshore pharmacy. And we have recordings from the hidden cameras in this room showing you discussing unplugging your father's life support." Daniel's legs buckled. He sat down heavily in the visitor's chair, his head in his hands. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know?" I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The room swayed slightly, a reminder that the poison had been real, even if my condition was exaggerated. But I steadied myself against the bed rail. "I knew because I have been protecting myself for 40 years, Danny. You assumed I was just a stupid old mechanic who did not notice anything. You were wrong. But the apartment, the truck, you live like I have nothing?" I finished for him. I walked to the closet where they had searched my jacket and pulled out my wallet. Behind the photo of baby Daniel, hidden in a secret compartment, was a black business card with gold lettering. Walker Property Holdings. Thomas R. Walker, founder and chairman. I handed it to him. Daniel stared at the card like it was written in a foreign language. "I do not understand." Walker Property Holdings owns 37 apartment buildings in the greater Seattle area. The current estimated value is $180 million. I started the company in 1986, the year you were born. Every building I bought, every deal I made, I did it for you. I wanted you to have something real when I was gone, something you built on, not something you coasted on. I watched my son's face cycle through emotions, confusion, disbelief, and then, slowly, a terrible understanding. "You are rich," he breathed. "You have been rich this whole time, since before you could walk. But why? Why did you never tell me?" I leaned down so my face was close to his. I wanted him to see my eyes. I wanted him to remember this moment for the rest of his life. Because I wanted you to become a man who did not need money to have value. I wanted you to learn that character matters more than cash. I thought if you believed we had nothing, you would work hard. You would be kind. You would be honest. I straightened up. I was wrong. All I taught you was that poverty is shameful, and wealth is the only thing worth having. And when you thought I had nothing left to give, you decided I was worth more dead than alive. Daniel started to cry, not the theatrical tears he had shown at the house, but real ones, ugly and desperate. "Dad, I am so sorry. I did not mean," Victoria said. "We were in so much debt, and I did not know what to do, so you poisoned me. I was desperate. The Chens were going to cut us off. We were going to lose everything. You were going to lose things, Danny. Houses, cars, status, things." I shook my head. "I would have given you money. I would have paid your debts 100 times over. All you had to do was ask. All you had to do was treat me like a father instead of an inconvenience. I know that now. Please, Dad, I will make it up to you. I will do whatever it takes. Just tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you do not want to press charges." I looked at my son, at the man I had raised and loved and apparently failed in every way that mattered. No, the word hung in the air like a verdict. "The charges stand," I said. "You and Victoria will face trial for attempted murder. The evidence is overwhelming. My lawyers estimate you will each receive 15 to 20 years. Dad, please. Let me finish. I walked to the window and looked out at the lights of Bellevue spreading toward the lake. I am not doing this out of revenge, Danny. I am doing it because you need to learn that actions have consequences. Real consequences, not the kind you can buy your way out of. I turned back to face him. But I am also not abandoning you. I have already spoken with the best criminal defense attorneys in the state. They will represent you, paid for by me. They will make sure you get a fair trial and a sentence that fits the crime. And when you get out of prison, however many years that takes, there will be a job waiting for you at Walker Property Holdings. An entry-level job. Maintenance, cleaning, whatever you are qualified for. You will work your way up from the bottom, the way I did. I do not understand, Daniel said. You are sending me to prison and giving me a job? I am giving you something I should have given you 40 years ago. Structure, accountability, and the chance to become someone worth being. I nodded to Detective Santos. Take them. The officers led Daniel and Victoria out of the room. Victoria was still screaming about her father, about lawyers, about how her family would destroy me. Daniel was silent. Just before he reached the door, he turned and looked at me one last time. I wasted it all, he said quietly. Every chance you gave me, I wasted all of it. Yes, I said. You did. Is it too late? I do not know, Danny. That is up to you. But you have 15 years to figure it out. They took him away. The door closed, and I was alone. Martin Cole arrived 20 minutes later with Angela Reyes and a team of lawyers. There were documents to sign, statements to review, press releases to approve. Walker Property Holdings could not stay hidden any longer. The story would be in the news by morning. The reclusive billionaire whose own son tried to kill him for pocket change. You should rest, Martin said when the paperwork was done. The digoxin is out of your system, but your heart took a real beating tonight. I know. I sat back in the hospital bed, suddenly feeling all 67 of my years. Martin, did I do the right thing, keeping everything secret for so long? I do not know, he admitted, but I know you did it out of love. That has to count for something. Does it? Look at what my love produced. A son who would kill me for $200,000. That is not on you, Thomas. Daniel made his choices. We all make our choices. I thought about that for a long time after Martin left. About choices and consequences, and the children we raise, and the people they become. About all the money in the world and how little it matters when the people you love become strangers. I did not sleep that night. I lay in the hospital bed and watched the sun come up over Lake Washington, painting the water gold and pink. It was beautiful. I had helped build this city, one apartment building at a time. I had created thousands of homes for thousands of families. I had done something real and lasting with my life. But I had failed at the one thing that mattered most. I had failed to raise a good son. 6 months later, I stood in the gallery of King County Superior Court and watched the judge sentence Daniel to 18 years in state prison. Victoria got 22, her role as the instigator earning her additional time. The Chens had tried to distance themselves from the scandal, but too many people knew, too many reporters had dug too deep. Their import business was under investigation for tax fraud. Robert Chen was facing his own charges. The empire was crumbling. After the sentencing, I visited Daniel in the holding area. He looked different, thinner, older. The arrogance was gone from his eyes, replaced by something that might have been the beginning of wisdom. I thought you would not come, he said through the glass partition. I told you I was not abandoning you. I know. But saying and doing are different things. They are. I pressed my hand against the glass. After a moment, he pressed his hand against the other side. I started reading, he said. Books about business, about real estate. I want to understand what you built. That is a good start. I also started talking to a therapist. About Mom. About you. About why I became this. He gestured at the orange jumpsuit, the concrete walls. That is an even better start. Dad, I need you to know something. He leaned closer to the glass. When Victoria and I were talking about the poison, There was a part of me that did not want to do it. A part that remembered who you were, who I used to be. I should have listened to that part. But you did not. No, I did not, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I nodded slowly. Yes, you do. Do you think someday you will be able to forgive me? I thought about the question carefully before answering. About the boy who used to hand me wrenches. About the man who tried to kill me for money. About all the years in between and all the years still to come. I do not know, Danny, but I am willing to try. It was not absolution, it was not reconciliation, but it was something. A first step on a very long road. I walked out of the courthouse into the Seattle rain. My driver was waiting with an umbrella, ready to take me to whatever meeting or appointment came next. There were always meetings now, press conferences, board discussions, charity events. Thomas Walker was no longer invisible. The mechanic from Tacoma had been replaced by the billionaire philanthropist, and that man had responsibilities. But before I got into the car, I stopped and looked up at the gray sky. I thought about second chances, about how we give them and how we earn them, about the people we fail and the people who fail us. I had spent 40 years hiding who I was, and it had cost me my son. Now I would spend whatever years I had left being exactly who I was, out in the open, for better or worse. And maybe, if I was lucky, my son would find his way back to being someone worth knowing. That was my hope anyway. The only hope I had left. I got in the car and drove away. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever given someone a second chance they did not deserve? Or have you ever been the one who needed forgiveness? Drop your story in the comments. And if this video touched you in any way, hit that like button and subscribe to Hallowed Vengeance for more true stories of betrayal, redemption, and the complicated love that holds families together even when everything else falls apart. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.